To the Tracy Tag. I am your co-host Tyler here with my brother Ryan, and today we're going to be recapping all of Week 5, and also then at the very end we will be doing our predictions for the Week 6 Thursday Night Football matchup between the Washington Football Team Commanders and the Chicago Bears. But before we get into that, if this is your first time here, one, welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Two, also subscribe to this channel as well so you can see when we go live and also create new content. Also, we are on Twitter. We have many, a third of a dozen followers. So follow us at _Tracy_take and share that with your friends and family. Also share this video with your friends and family. Like, subscribe, and comment. Let us know your thoughts. And Ryan,
let's do it.
I thought that intro was going to be short. I thought it was going to be I guess 45 seconds.
Yeah, I was going to say we're about a minute in already, but
yeah, it isn't horribly long, but
yeah.
Is what it is. So, but anyways, crazy week. We are now in October, just a couple months left, but this is the last week before bye started to take in. And so one of the things I know I really want to talk about, and there are several things we're going to be talking about, is going to be just how crazy the AFC is. Also going to be getting into some officiating calls, especially that my Falcons were on the other side of. And then a lot of other things as well, especially going in the NFC East. But right now, the AFC to me is just absolutely insane. Including right now, we're recording. It's Monday night. And so if you're Chiefs fans and you're joining us during halftime, hello. But don't know what's going on with your Chiefs. No one would have predicted that they would be down 10 points to the Las Vegas Raiders. And I think this to me just goes to show the depth of the AFC. And as I said, there's two teams right now off the top of my head that are for sure not going to make it, Houston and Pittsburgh. But even then, it's 2 and 3. I think they're just a game behind Tennessee, and I think they have, the talent, and they've shown that they can play in these big games and potentially beat the Titans, maybe win the division, maybe even win the wild card outright. Just depends. The Jets are 3-2. Miami's also 3-2, and then they have some injuries, so we'll have to see kind of what happens with them as they progress. But there's so many teams that are still in it. Are there any teams to you that outside Houston and Pittsburgh that you're not feeling very confident about moving forward, or teams that you think people aren't talking about enough that can make the playoffs?
It was this time last year, I think Indianapolis, they started out 1-4, but they showed a lot of promise. And for me, especially watching them on Thursday, they have a very long way to go. And maybe it was a byproduct of Denver just having a really good defense, playing on a short week and Mile High, which is a really tough place to play geographically, not just the fan base wise, but going to Mile High is very different than a lot of other stadiums. So maybe that had something to do with it. But so far, what I've seen from the Colts has not been promising, which is very odd to say because their one win is against Kansas City, who I think is a clear playoff team.
They have 2 wins now.
Well, fair.
Yeah,
I don't necessarily count that as a win. I think both of those teams lost
on paper.
Thursday.
When it comes to who makes the playoffs and who doesn't, that's going to be a win. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, that was the worst football game I think I've ever seen. I think did Denver just get a new coach?
Yep, Nathaniel Hackett, former offensive coordinator of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, he should be fired.
Well, we'll get into that in a little bit as well, because I know we want to talk about the analytics a little bit, but something's going on with Denver, because Denver was a team that I think we both had them in the playoff. Yeah, we both had them in the playoffs in our prediction. I had them barely making it, so that's looking a little bit better on my end. You had them winning the division.
Because on paper, they have one of the most star-studded rosters.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. So you're talking about the coach being fired, but now there was some play calling, and maybe this is where we can go in the analytics a little bit more, or we can wait to talk about that later. But I did not like the 4th down going for it when there's 2 minutes left and you're up 3. Kick the field goal, make them have to score a touchdown, which the Colts had not even come close to at all. But you're right, though. They have all the talent in the world. And for me, then I'm kind of also looking at Russell Wilson a little bit. Yes.
Yeah.
It's totally a new coach, new system for Russell Wilson to come in. But there are even basic things like that. I mean, he just flat out missed KJ Hamler at the end.
Wide open.
Missed him. Yeah. And the Broncos gave away a lot to get Russell Wilson over here. And he has not held up his end of the bargain. And it's not for lack of talent. I mean, maybe like you could say some injuries. It looks like their left tackle got hurt. He got carted off. Javonte Williams is out. Tim Patrick hurt his tore his ACL at the beginning of the season. So, like, maybe some of the injuries are affecting that, but still, it has just been crappy performances, you know, time and time again. And what's really been keeping them in these games has been their defense. Their defense has been spectacular. So I'm surprised, especially after when they finally put up over 20 points, thought that maybe they would have clicked or found something.
Found a little rhythm.
And then coming on a short week, thinking that they would have been able to get the Colts just surprised, I guess, a little bit. So, but like these are two teams though who definitely are not playing well now, but on paper could be saying a lot by the end of the season. And that to me then just comes back to like just showing the absolute depth that this AFC has. Even the Jets look, I mean, yes, Dolphins were a little depleted, but they dominated the Dolphins. Now they're 3-2. They're only a game back from Buffalo. And I don't think that they'll beat Buffalo. I don't think that they'll win that division, but I don't know, going up against your Patriots, I think that they have a good shot against whenever they play. And they've manhandled the Dolphins, so they could beat the Dolphins down in Miami later on in the season when they play.
All props to the Jets. They had a great week. They put up 40 points on a Miami defense that has been pretty stingy so far this year. So I think the Jets are improving. I still don't. I think the Jets will end up being an odd man out in the playoff race. They have a load of talent. Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Breece Hall, Michael Carter, Zach Wilson, and then Ahmad Gardner. And those are all first and second round picks from the last 2 years. Like they are just so loaded. But I think that they will end up being the odd man out. Zach Wilson has thrown 6 interceptions against New England in 2 games. So I want to see him really improve and do better. But to be fair, I mean, that offense looked really good against Miami, who's been a really stingy defense. So yeah.
Well, and we're talking about the improvement of the Jets. Jaguars look like they've improved, even though from last year that's not really saying much, because I think a lot of the coaching changes have helped. But I think for an AFC South team, they'd have to win the division. I don't think, but it just goes to show how deep the AFC is. And we haven't even talked about the West. I mean, we haven't even talked about the Raiders are up 10, against the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I think, would still be leading the division, but that would all four teams would be within a game of the division. So the AFC is just absolutely loaded, and anything can really happen. Especially now Washington. Of course, it's just one half, obviously, with the Chiefs, but kind of surprising, especially with the way that they came out last week against Tampa Bay. And
I'm curious. So last week against Tampa Bay, they came out, they got the fumble off the opening kickoff. I'm curious of how much of that offense was like a snowball effect of just like they got going downhill and Tampa just couldn't quite stop it. And I think a lot of that is that offense schematically is just very good. And they just came out and executed better than Tampa. But I think they built up such a lead that they were able to do whatever they wanted pretty much.
Well, fair, but also at the same time, they were able to kind of do whatever they wanted from the get-go. Even though, it was like, they got the fumble. 2 plays later, they scored a touchdown. But
and then 3 and out, they get the ball at like the 35 or 40.
Went down, scored.
Touchdown.
Yeah. So, and maybe part of this is they do still have a lot of new like offensive pieces and everything that they're still trying to get used to. So, and this is week 5 for them. This is just their 5th game. But it's it's just that consistency with them is still, and I think that's a team, especially with how great a coach Andy Reid is. They're going to continue to move on, continue to improve. I'm curious now what Josh McDaniels and Derek Carr do with they also have some new pieces. One of the big surprises for me with the Raiders is how they've actually been able to started to run the ball really well. Josh Jacobs tonight already has a touchdown and I think 50 or 60 yards, and who knows how much more he's going to keep getting. He had a game last week. He had the best game of his career.
Yeah.
The Raiders are able to do that and able to consistently keep running the ball. We know how great their passing game can be. So that's only going to open things up for them from there. Then it's just going to be can the defense just hang on, because their defense isn't that great. But just for me, though, like we talked about all the AFC divisions. Actually, really besides the AFC North. But
which
even
realistically could be the most competitive of them all outside of Pittsburgh.
I still think the AFC West is the most competitive. Even though we're talking about like Denver's really struggling right now, I still think at the end of the season that this division is going to be very competitive, because the Chargers should have beat the Chiefs. Raiders look like they have an opportunity to beat the Chiefs. Raiders beat the Broncos. I'm pretty sure the Chargers barely beat the Raiders at the beginning of the season. So all really close games. Like I can honestly see the division winner of this being 11-6. Being a 3 seed or something like that. It's going to be. I think it's going to be very tight.
Yeah. No. I mean, the AFC, like you said, I think each division is at least 3 teams deep, and I think you have divisions like the AFC East and the AFC West that are like all 4 of those teams could potentially make the playoffs. The one thing is with both of those divisions, I think you have a clear leader in the Chiefs and the Bills, where it's like, all right, those teams are probably going to win the division, and everybody else is going to be fighting for a wild card.
Yeah.
So
I will say one team, and I don't want to hear your thoughts on this, but I think one team, and I wouldn't be surprised if they made it, but I would think that I would think that your Patriots are on the outside looking in, going into the playoffs. And for me, a lot of it is just their lack of playmaking ability. They don't have that explosiveness on offense, I feel. Even though they did just shut out the Lions, they stopped one of the best offenses, statistically one of the best offenses in the league. But even still, if I look at them, even going up against the Chargers, so to say, I don't know how they would fare against them.
But they've beat the Chargers, but each of the last 2 years.
Yeah, but years go by. Like it's with something like that, a lot changes. Like they didn't have Khalil Mack, when they played the past couple of years. The running game for the Patriots was a lot more, and correct me if I'm wrong, was a lot more effective than what it's been so far this year. Now that could always change and everything.
They ran for almost 200 yards against the Lions. Yeah, that's not saying a whole lot, but it's gotten a lot better
over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, in the past couple, they ran for almost 200 against the Ravens too, who have been a good run defense.
And that's fair. I'm at this point now, if it's the Chargers versus the Patriots, I might lean towards the Chargers. Especially if the Chargers are once when they get healthy.
I agree. New England is lacking that explosive playmaking. To me, I think where they separate themselves from a lot of these teams is with the coaching. And New England will have an opportunity to win every single game because of coaching. And so I think New England is still up in the air. I think they are leaning towards outside looking in because they had such a rough start. But we'll really see where New England stands in the next 2 or 3 weeks because they are playing the Browns, the Bears, and I think the Jets in the next 3 weeks. And so I think we're really.
I'm pretty sure they play the Browns next weekend. That was a game I was looking at.
Yeah.
Like,
no, they do.
It's at Cleveland. Is Mac Jones going to be there, or is the future Tom Brady going to be starting?
I don't know. We'll see.
I absolutely love just where our culture is at. That it's and where our society and media are at. That is like this kid from Western Kentucky. He wins or nearly wins one game, and then he wins another game against top 5 worst team in the league. And everyone's calling him the next Tom Brady.
Yeah.
It's just,
I will say he actually looked really good for the opportunities that they gave him. He was 17 of 21 for about 200 yards and a touchdown. He threw an interception.
All you need. That's all you need from him.
He threw an interception, but it hit the receiver in the hands, and then he double clutched it and then popped it up, and then the safety got it. It was not. It was more of a fumble than an interception. So
it's just funny. The only sure thing I think that has come from this is that Brian Hoyer will be out of a job.
He's on IR.
Here. No, I know, but now
Oh yeah,
they have their younger, cheaper backup.
Yeah,
and so it's like Brian Hoyer is going to either retire or will be looking for a job somewhere else. And so, but yeah, the AFC's, it's definitely, I'm just like last year, extremely looking forward to watching it. The NFC's starting to get a little bit more exciting. A lot more teams, I think, a lot more middle of the road teams and even weaker teams are starting to perform a little bit more. And some of the top teams definitely seem to be coming down. Green Bay, shocking loss against the Giants.
0
Cowboys,
half points. It's insane.
I know. Insane. Didn't they get a safety? No, they didn't. So they were at 22. I don't know. I didn't watch the game. It's we don't get NFL Network, unfortunately, here, thanks to DirecTV Stream. It's just, that's crazy. I never would have thought that. I could have envisioned the Giants potentially being 3-2. It would have figured the Packers would be 4-1. Never would have thought that it would be reverse. The Packers being 3-2 and the Giants being 4-1.
So you were talking about the Patriots like this, but the Packers right now really lack the ability to make explosive plays. The Patriots and the Packers are built very similarly. The only difference is the Packers have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Aaron Rodgers. And the Patriots have a future Hall of Fame quarterback, Bailey Zappi. And Bailey That'd
Zappi.
be great. So everybody, it's been a whole thing. It's like, oh, is there a quarterback controversy in New England? And I'm like, honestly,
I love it. To me, that's so funny.
If there is, then great. But it's like you have a 4th round rookie versus a second round or a second year 1st round pick. I'm like, you really don't even have an established starter.
I love it. I absolutely love that. Cracks so much. Let's see it. I would love to see it. Let's bring on a walk on as well, and just throw him in the mix. Maybe he's better than both of them.
So
yeah, it's true.
But no, so
he made
that off the doink.
But
no, it's a really interesting thing to kind of see, because when Green Bay got down, when things got out of rhythm, they could not respond. I mean,
well, and this goes to one thing I didn't really think about too much in the offseason, especially when making our predictions, but having those rookie wide receivers, not know the system as well, not have that timing with Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams brought so much attention where it would have opened up a lot of things for the other guys as well. That's kind of a big deal. And it's amazing, too, because their defense is very good. They did give up 27 points to the Giants, but I would still say is top 10 defense. They can run the ball against anybody with Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon in the backfield. But, they don't have that top-end threat, that truly scares you. And
I remember in 2013 or 14 when Devontae Adams was a rookie, they still had Jordy Nelson and Was it Greg Jennings? Was that the one that was there?
Maybe Greg Jennings. Would Randall Cobb have been there? I think Randall
Cobb was there, but he was also kind of like on the build-up. Actually, I guess he was kind of at his peak there. But it was like they had this transition period of wide receivers where it was like, all right, we still have our veteran, but we have this guy, Devontae Adams, in the wings who's coming up. And it seems
they
like
can build him.
Yeah.
I mean, so now it's like Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs is –
it's trial by fire now.
It's trial by fire now.
You have to play.
And Alan Lazard, great receiver, not a number one. He's just not a number one. He's maybe a middle end number 2, top level number 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that worked great when it was Devontae Adams was on the other side of the ball, because I think he complemented that and he knew how Aaron Rodgers wanted him to run. Yeah. And so he knew where he was going to throw the ball. But now, when you have him as number 1, he's the number 1 receiver. That is, defenses aren't too scared of him. Not at all. But this conversation started with you talking about Green Bay and New England. The only difference for me is I still think Green Bay will get in to the playoffs, even if they don't win the division. It's just going to be look at the other.
Well, yeah, they're still
the other teams in the NFC.
They are still better than. I think they're still the best team in the division.
Yeah.
So I think they'll win the division, but they're still better than 2 of the other 3 wild card teams. I feel like at the very least, they'll be fine. New England's situation is just a little worse.
Because the AFC is just loaded. But you know what, though? As I'm saying that, though, I'm looking at – so, let's say, for me, I don't know when the Giants are going to drop off. Maybe they won't drop off. But the Eagles, I think, they should be a lock for the playoffs.
Yeah.
Personally. The Giants and Cowboys are both 4-1. I mean, that NFC East is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And for me, when I look at it, and also just looking at kind of the talent on the field, because the Giants have no receivers now. The Giants maybe can't, they now have the tiebreaker over the Packers. But the NFC East, though, is ridiculous. Washington's really bringing that division down. Other than that, because I think that division only has 2 losses amongst their top 3 teams. Yeah. And who knows when Dak Prescott comes back, who knows what's going to happen then with that team. And with that,
I think they're being very patient. Cooper Rush to me has looked fine. To me, I'm also a little biased. I'm not a huge Dak Prescott fan. I think he's very overrated. He padded a lot of his numbers when he was early on in his career with garbage time, off coverage, statistics, pretty much, and I think they're being very patient with him because I think Cooper Rush is doing a good job leading this team.
Well, yeah, with their being 4-1, let's not rush Dak. If they're 1-4, they might rush Dak back. Being 4-1, and the biggest thing to me is, it seems like it forces them to have a more balanced offense instead of being all right, let's throw the ball on first down. Okay, incomplete, throw it on second down, throw it on third down. It forces them now to have a much more balanced attack. I think it really actually opens up their entire playbook. And another thing on top of that, too, is that defense is better than solid. That's another top 10 defense.
They have the best pass rush in the league.
Micah Parsons is an absolute menace. I don't know. Teams don't want to go up against him because you got to have whatever side he's on, you're going to have running back help on that side and maybe throw a tight end on there and do a little check down.
Yeah.
Just before that tight end goes and does his route. That takes away so much attention from the other 3 guys. They can bring on other blitzes, really gets after the quarterback. And you were right, too. You were correct on the pick with the Cowboys and the Rams. I thought the Cowboys would have been able to just outscore them.
And the Rams?
The Rams would just be able to outscore them, but that defense was able to get at it. Was able to get after Matt Stafford. Was not able. Cooper Kupp had a game statistically, but how much of that was garbage time points?
He had one big play. He had I think it was 60-yard.
Well, yeah, it was their touchdown, I think.
Yeah.
But other than that, though, they stopped the Rams to essentially everything else. Outside of that, and outside Cooper Kupp getting some garbage time points, that the defense is legit, and it's the Super Bowl champs now. That yes, they did lose a lot, but Cowboys look legit. Giants, they're facing some injuries. Some guys are going to really have to step up. I don't know how long Saquon Barkley can carry that team, but they're now potentially looking at a wild card spot as well. So we'll just have to see.
Even if they just go 500 through the rest of the season, I think they're still looking at a wild card spot.
10-7, about 10-7.
10-7. I mean, because in the NFC, I think that gets you in 10-7.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, last year was 9-8, right?
Yeah.
And if we're looking at other teams that have a legit chance, I would say the Rams, Vikings, Packers, and then I wouldn't really say anyone from the NFC South. Maybe the Saints. But
yeah, the only thing with the Saints is like Taysom Hill single-handedly won that game, and he has never played more than I think 10 games in a season. But it was against the Seahawks though too. Yeah,
who gave up 45 points to the Lions, who didn't have DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, or DJ Chark. So they
3 of their top 4 weapons.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the Seahawks allowed and Taysom Hill, if he's technically classified as a tight end, the Seahawks in 2 weeks gave up 5 or 6 touchdowns to tight ends. That's unheard of. Especially if a team just has a mediocre tight end. Normally, then that means that they also have great weapons on the outside. If they just have a mediocre tight end, or they have a great tight end like the Chiefs here, and it's just not, and they just can't stop them. The defense is absolutely atrocious. So I don't see the Seahawks making it.
Jamal Adams is the worst safety in the league, especially value wise.
Well, I also think he's out for the season too.
Oh, is he? Did he?
Yeah,
I think he's out.
I think the first drive of the season, I think he hurt himself against the Broncos. Double check me on that. So if we have any viewers, double check me on that. So
oh yeah. Okay, he tore his left quadriceps.
Quadriceps
tendon. That sounds terrible.
Well,
okay. Jamal Adams is the most overrated safety in the league, and whoever is under him is even worse. But and so kind of speaking of the NFC South, I think the Bucs took a hold of that division this weekend, beating the Falcons. In very controversial fashion. It was actually only 21-15. It was a really close game, but
yes and no. So it was 21-0 going into the fourth quarter, and then the Falcons put up 15 points in the fourth quarter. Before we get into the call, for me, though, I'm still concerned about the Bucs just a little bit. It's not even like the Falcons' defense has improved technically, I would say, compared to last season. That's not really saying much, but it's interesting. This offense definitely is struggling, and I think you hit the nail on the head earlier in the season. Is having a weaker offensive line definitely affects Tom Brady's offense. And
I mean, it affects every offense, but specifically an immobile Tom Brady.
In today's football, guys like Tom Brady, these older guys, these pure pocket passers. I'll also include Matt Ryan in this. We saw this with Ben Roethlisberger as well. I won't include Aaron Rodgers because he is shifty enough. He is athletic and mobile enough to where he can kind of make some guys evade a little bit. But those guys like that, if there's pressure up the middle, or if they get pressured and they don't have time to get the ball out, that it really affects their offense and it affects their performance. Those guys thrive when the offensive line, just 5 guys, are able to block and defend and give them 4 or 5 seconds. So then they can just pick apart this defense and they can kind of do what they want.
I would also lump Mac Jones into that category.
I would throw Mac Jones into the Aaron Rodgers category. where he's shifty and athletic enough to where he can move around a little bit, but nowhere near obviously like a Mahomes or Lamar
Josh
Jackson
Allen, yeah.
or Josh
Yeah.
Allen or something.
That's fair.
That.
That's fair.
Yeah.
To me, he's like in between those. Like Aaron Rodgers is even now more athletic than Mac Jones.
Yeah, fair. But he's still though. He can still extend the play, so to say.
Yeah.
Tom, you don't see Tom Brady rolling out to the right,
No,
on a
Tom
play
Brady
action
looks like
bootleg.
Quadriplegic doing that. Like it's not.
Yeah, but I still think Tom Brady and them are going to win the division. The Panthers fired Matt Rule. I called that one.
You did call that one.
I called that one. Not surprising though. It's just because they just looked like absolute tar. I mean, they just looked awful. And eventually, it's like at what point it's like, okay, let's just make a change. Now's the time to make a change. I also think that they fired the defensive coordinator, which I think is actually, I was surprised, but then looking back on it was a good thing because this defense should be really good, and it's not.
It was just really good last year, actually.
I know, and for them just to kind of come out and lay a goose egg, I think they've given up a lot of points. And they have a lot of talent on that team. And so, but actually on both sides of the ball, they have a lot of talent. And so I think that's good for them, but their season has been shot. They're not going to contend. The Saints, no, I just don't. I think the Bucs now have the Saints number because I think that they play similar. I think they play similar style games like hard nose, smash mouth football. And the Falcons, I don't know. The Falcons have a somewhat easier schedule coming up, so maybe we'll see if they can contend. But I just don't see it happening. But now let's get on to what I think all of our viewers, if we have any viewers,
we don't as of right now.
As of right now, one of the worst calls I think I've ever seen, and this is kind of an ongoing thing that we have talked about, especially over the past, and because we talked about a lot last week with Tua and like what should the NFL do when it comes to rules and safety to protect the players, but also keep the game interesting. You know what I mean, and not lose fans off BS calls like that. And that sack that Grady Jarrett had, it's one of the worst.
Roughing the passer calls.
One of the worst roughing the passers, because how else from that angle, from that position, how else would you want him to tackle Tom Brady? Because also another thing too, it's like Tom Brady. It's not like then you also can't tell the quarterback to be like, okay, well, you have to stay still so that he can tackle you correctly. Like Tom Brady's not going to want to take a sack there. So like there are going to be pieces moving. Same thing with like the defenseless receiver. Helmet to helmet when Wes Welker or Julian Edelman will catch a ball, turn, and then crouch and duck, lowering his head, and then the defender who's coming in for the tackle then hits his head because they were able to drop a foot and now it's head-to-head contact. I don't know what else Grady Jarrett could do. Obviously, everyone in the sports in the NFL world has talked about how awful of a call that is. And no, I don't think it's just a Tom Brady call because the same ref made the same egregious roughing the passer call in about the same point in the game last week against Baltimore when the Bills were playing against them. Horrible roughing the passer call. Nearly the same situation. The only difference is that game was tied and then it kept the Bills drive going. Well, this one, Falcons may or may not have come back. Probably not. But there was 4.5 minutes left, and I think the Falcons I can't remember how many timeouts that they had, but the Falcons had dominated that fourth quarter.
Literally, look at this play that just happened right here in the game. The sack. It is the exact same thing.
Well, and this goes back to what we were talking about. And are these fans wanting to have a roughing the passer call? No, steps on his foot, and goes.
Wraps him up, spins him down.
Yeah, so that's the thing. When with that ref, the Jerome Booger was the ref, and he was the ref also last week as well. Because then, if you look at it, asked and he didn't, and he said no, it didn't. There wasn't an emphasis on sacks or the way that sacks happen like that, where the quarterback gets thrown down, spun around like how would happen to Tua. But even if you look at what happened with Tua, it was an accident or like an unfortunate end to the play. But even that wasn't a roughing the passer call. That was just a football play. What else do you want that end to do? He is trying to grab him by his hips. Tua was trying to run away. And in turning him, then he tripped over, which then caused a whipping effect. Then Tua hit his head. Same thing then what happened with Tom Brady and Grady Jarrett. Just what else do you want them to do? Because then at that point, it's like then it should just be touch football at that point. If he can't tackle him that way, because he didn't tackle him by landing on top of him, which there was a roughing the passer call tonight where the guy landed on top of him, which still was an egregious call in my opinion.
It was very questionable.
I did not like the call still in that situation. But it's like it's just this is where as the fan, and I don't even say like I don't even want to hold my bias out there because I think nearly every fan, even I've seen Bucs fans say that was an atrocious call.
I mean, I'm about as big of a Tom Brady fan as you can get, and I was like, that is. Like, I've seen Tom Brady, like, get some calls before.
Yeah.
Like, AFC Championship game in Kansas City, Tom Brady throws a pass as a defensive lineman comes and hits him in the head with his hand. Like, and when I say hits him in the head, like, I mean, like, palms the
like
top
of his
helmet. Yeah, like nothing hard. They threw roughing the passer because you can't hit the quarterback in the head. And I'm like, I understand by rule that is a roughing the passer. Like, he hit him in the head.
Well, the difference I would say with that rule, and I agree with you, because I know the play that you're talking about, and absolute crap call. But you know what though? At least on the rule book,
that's what it says.
It is objective. If a hand hits the head, that is a penalty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing in the
horrible call, but it is by the rule book. This to me is a horrible call that is not by the rule book because they have the rule set up to protect the quarterbacks from getting broken collarbones because that happened to Aaron Rodgers 2 or 3 times, I think.
Yeah.
Rolling out Aaron Rodgers twice, Jimmy Garoppolo once when he was in New England. It's to protect quarterbacks from that exact injury from getting landed on by these 300-pound linemen. And it's like, so now they're training guys to grab the hips and spin them down. To avoid these penalties, and it's like now they're calling penalties for when you do that too viciously. Like like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't deal. Like,
well, and this is one of the things, and they had this. I remember they had this for a long time. It was the face mask penalties. There were 2 types of face masks: incidental or intentional. And it got very subjective. And then some refs would call it more often as just a 5-yard penalty than the intentional 15-yard penalty. And so then they just made it, you know what? Does not matter. If you grab the face mask, 15 yards. And you're like, you know what? I can respect that a lot more. Don't reach your hands up towards the face and like try and pull them down, even if it's accidental or something like that. And it's much more objective. But with this, though, even with what this ref said, it's like I felt he threw him down too hard. Well, hey, the refs in this Monday night game didn't think so. And so seasons are literally being defined by this one referee because now with not saying that the Ravens would have beat the Bills, but let's say the Bills.
I think that was a third down or it was second and long.
Against the Bills?
Yeah, on that when he made
it was, call. They would have had the punt. And so, but it kept the drive going just as how this did with Tampa Bay. And now the Falcons season, let's say not saying that they would have come down, but let's say they can somehow come back and win that game. Now they're leading the division 3-2. They are up a game, and they do have a relatively easier schedule coming up over this middle part of the season. Who knows what could happen to the Falcons season? Same thing with the Ravens. The Ravens let's say they go on and win the division, but if they have the same record as the Bills, they now have to go through Buffalo. Instead of if maybe things turn out a little bit differently. And of course, we'll talk about this next. I know we want to get into the analytics that are going on with the coaches. But for me, this continues to go on with what we talked about last week about Tua's injury and his and what the NFL needs to do. And they have a very important decision. But this is another major thing that they need to, because this
out.
also plays into that same situation about how to protect concussions, but also the quarterback as well, because a lot of these quarterbacks are getting concussions. And if they're not like, if they're having these ticky-tack fouls, it just ruins the game. This is what, for me, then also, like, just comparing to the NBA, I don't really watch the NBA anymore because the product is absolute crap, because the players don't try hard, and there's a lot of seems like favoritism, just in my opinion. And I think that they can start to go down that route if there is a lot of these subjective calls that continue to keep happening.
No, 100%. And that's where, like, I get annoyed just because the rules are so like, we had this debate a few years ago is like, what is a catch? What's not a catch? Like being able to review pass interference. And it's like, well, if you feel the guy got in his way, or like didn't allow him to make a play, I'm like, well, it's like, so then we started getting all like the ticky tack hand on the hip rules. And like, to me, they have to figure out a way to make it black and white. And for me, I think the landing on a quarterback is fairly unsubjective, but he threw him down too hard is not a good.
That's football. I mean, that's football.
It's all about imposing your will. And I understand.
And my one thing with landing on them. So just for example, the sack tonight that happened, I'm pretty sure it was Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Well, that's what. So he knocked the ball out while he was tackling him, and then landed with the ball. At that point, then it's similar with passing. I would think it'd be similar with pass interference. Is that the ball is tipped, you can absolutely deck the receiver because the ball's tipped. So if the ball's loose, then just because he landed on him, that doesn't mean anything. Is Josh Jacobs about to run it back? He's on my dynasty fantasy league. Josh Jacobs having a year.
He is. I think he's over 115 yards this game already.
Hey, all right. But just to wrap it up, continue the conversation from last week, especially talking about with Tua, concussions, and the rules and safety regulations that the NFL really needs to focus on. If they're this concerned about quarterbacks getting hurt, then they need to
put flags on them. Then, like,
well, no, I see what you're saying, but then they need to then put better equipment and protection on these quarterbacks, because could be better for the game if guys can absolutely get leveled just like that. But even then, though, so I would need to look and see. So number 47 just tackled Derek Carr, and let me see the replay of this because it looked like he landed on him.
Yeah,
and I'm not saying I agree with throwing the roughing the passer call there, but
it has to do with like, not really. He kind of spun him around.
Okay, yeah, he did spin him around there.
But so like also too, like if you land on the quarterback, like they don't call it if you like brace yourself, right? So if you're like taking the quarterback down, you're like falling on him, but then you kind of like put your hands down, and you land on your knees, and you don't like land on him, like put your whole body weight on him. Then they don't call it. And I'm like, to me, there's too much of a gray area there. And I understand you want to protect quarterbacks, but what if you make it so if quarterbacks outside of the pocket, you can't tackle and land on?
Well,
because that's where all those injuries are happening.
Well, but then also to imagine a linebacker thinking about all this stuff while trying to sack Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes.
100%.
Like you can't be like, okay, so like when I do get on top of him or when I do grab him, I'm going to land on him. Make sure as we're falling, I brace.
Yeah.
That I don't land on him so that I don't get a penalty. It's so much to think about, and it's not football. It's not football. The goal is just like tackle this guy. Obviously, we don't want anyone to get hurt, but it just needs to be as simple as that. And there shouldn't be things like with what happened with Jim McMahon, where
he gets picked up and body slammed.
Like gets picked up and then body slammed. No, we don't want that. At all. Do not want that at all. But then at the same time, though, if what Grady Jarrett did to Tom Brady is roughing the passer, we have gone too far. We have gone way too far. There is a spot in the middle that the NFL needs to find, because roughing the passer is a real penalty. People can get seriously hurt. Not on that play. Not on that Grady Jarrett play.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And so speaking of calls, let's transition it over into calls that we also disagree with, but just a different type of call. Play calls. Okay. So
Nice segue.
thanks. There has been a big push for analytical reasoning in modern day football. And I'm not an advocate that says like, oh, football should be played like the man's way, whatever. I think you should take analytics into account. However, I think teams have taken it to an extreme that is just stupid. Because there's an old saying that there's lies, then there's damn lies, and then there's statistics.
Mm-hmm.
And for the one that I'm speaking about this week specifically is for the Browns to be down by 2 with less than 2 minutes left, to be throwing the ball in the red zone. That resulted in a pick. Okay. Then the Chargers said, here, hold my beer, go down on 4th and 2 in Charger territory at like the 46, I think, on 4th and 2, say, let's throw the ball instead of punting it deep into Cleveland territory. I don't know why. Is it Zach Taylor, the head coach of the Chargers?
No, Brandon Staley. Zach Taylor.
Brandon Staley. That's the Bengals. Yeah. I don't know why Brandon Staley continues to do this, but he continuously shoots his team in the foot by following the statistics instead of the feel of the game.
Well, and you know what's interesting too? This is the same team that last year in both the Chiefs game, the week or two before the final game, and then also the against the Raiders in the last game of the regular season.
Mm-hmm.
Made some horrible time management and coaching decisions on going for it or not going for it.
No way he caught that. Oh, no, he didn't. Okay.
Oh, okay. But and I even saw today Keenan Allen and a lot of the Chargers fans are just sick of this analytics thing. Are just say, I mean, I'm all for going for it, on 4th down if it's feeling right, being aggressive, you don't win games, being complacent, you got to go out and win them. But then there's like being dumb. And when I think about it, to me, it's like that combination, and I'll show the nerd in me, between Spock and James D. Kirk. Like Spock is a robot. He's all analytics. It's like 80% you will survive, or it's like, nope, that's not, like statistically, that is not the right decision to make. We need to go this way.
Yeah. And
James T. Kirk is all on instinct. Like, you know what? I'm going to go into this battle, or I'm not going to go into this battle. And it's just based off instincts. But they work together so well that they're able to come to the right conclusion, because he has the statistical side and then the kind of emotional feeling and outside, just going with the gut instincts. And there needs to be a blend with both. You be like, on 4th and 1, 60% of the time, we will get it. Because then that means 40% of the time is the entire 2022 season. You know what I mean? Like, who knows like how long the percentage is for? Let's say it's over 1,000 times you have 4th and 1. 400 times you're not going to get it. And let's say that 400 times the entire season. Well, there goes your season. There might be job.
Yeah.
Just because it's 4th and 1 at your own 25 does not mean you go for it.
Also, too, so one of the things, like in critical situations, like being up 30-28 with 1 minute and 40 seconds left, and it's 4th and 2 at midfield, you could pin the Browns at the 10. Worst case scenario, you put the Browns at the 20 with 1 minute and like 35 seconds left. That is worst case scenario. And it's like you decide to go for it. And then like you give the Browns an opportunity that because it's the Browns, that they miss, but like you could have clearly cost your team a mark in the win column. With that one call, no matter what happened earlier. And he did the same thing against the Chiefs last year in like the week 14 or 15 game.
Yeah. Shoot, hey, you know what though? You can say he did it this year against the Chiefs. The play that
fair.
the Chiefs got the pick six. Gerald Everett was like, "I need to come out. I'm exhausted." He just caught the last two or three passes
and then
for
ran
the Chargers,
60, 70 yards or whatever.
Well, yeah. And then he's like, I need to come out. And they're like, no, one more play. And then Justin Herbert decides to throw it to him on the quick little screen pass. Little miscommunication.
Yeah.
Little miscommunication. Chief safety picks it off, runs it for a touchdown, and now they're down by 7. Instead of just taking their time, they had the momentum, get him out. So then, and I understand why they wanted him to stay in. And I'm curious too, how many – I'm trying to think how many times, specifically with Brandon Staley, has his aggression benefited the team, where they've won the game because of his aggression. Because I can think of certain instances, like I can think of, like in certain coaches when they're aggressive, maybe when they shouldn't be, like the Chiefs against the Browns a couple years ago when out of the game with a concussion. Chad Henne was in. It was 4th and 1. And I remember Tony Romo was, and this is in the playoffs, the AFC divisional. And like they're not going to hike the ball. They're not going to hike the ball. It's 4th and 1 midfield. If they get the first down, it ices the game. They're trying to get everyone thinks the Browns they're going to try and get them to jump off. And no, Chad Henne hikes the ball, throws to Tyreek Hill, goes a couple yards, first down, game over. And like that's a ballsy aggression play. And I think also on top of that, Chiefs were up 22-17, so the Browns had to score a touchdown.
Yeah.
But still, though,
that's a
selective aggression, I think,
works
well. If you're aggressive all the time.
It was also a minimal risk play because I think that they were like just barely in Cleveland territory as well. And so it was like they were really only sacrificing like 20-ish yards if they punted it into the end zone and just gave them a touchback. And,
maybe.
And so to me, I think that you have, like you said, have to be calculated about like when you decide to be aggressive. Another example, we talked a little bit about this last week of when not to be aggressive, like 4th and 4 on the goal line when the game is tied with less than 2 minutes left. When you have the most consistent kicker of all time.
Well, shoot. Well, but also, too, that would have been, a 25-yarder? You and I could have made that.
I understand that, but it's not even like it would have been – it's not even like, well, he should make this. It's like, okay, like just go ahead and put 3 points up on the board. Like, type of deal. So that for me is just an egregious call. And then for the coach to say in the press conference, well, the analytics said we should have gone for it. I'm like, no, you take the points. It's a game of points, not analytics. Yeah. Whoever has more points at the end of 60 minutes wins.
I think at the end of the day, those should be that the analytics should be there as a guide and as a reference, and maybe you can be a little bit more aggressive. Choose where you'd want to be more aggressive. But I still think though, situation, not every 4th and 1 is the same.
No, yeah.
And so it's like you need to go with your gut. You need to be able to go. And maybe John Harbaugh, if he would have said, I just had a gut feeling that we needed a touchdown. If we would have kicked a field goal, that Josh Allen would have come back. And you know what? I would have respected that answer a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely.
And then just kicking the field goal at the same time, it's like you might not like the situation that you're put in, but being up 3 points, make them have to come down and kick a field goal to tie, touchdown to win. It's a lot better than trying to stop them from taking the lead and winning the game, which is what happened. So we're seeing that now with this new age of quarterbacks and or with this new age of coaches. And we're seeing some last and some not last. And so we'll just have to kind of see at the end of the day, the coaches that will stay the longest are going to be the ones that figure out that blend that we're talking about. Brandon Staley, I don't think he's going to last. It seems like it is. What do the analytics say? Like, go for it. Okay. Well, if it says go for it 75% of the time, but you only get it a third of the time, then then there's something wrong. Like there's something wrong with play calling. It's something wrong with your decision making, your players, your coach. It doesn't matter. There's something wrong.
Also, so like let's say you're driving, right? You're running the ball consistently for like 4 yards of play. You and then all of a sudden you're in like 3rd and 2. You're like, all right, let's take a shot at midfield. Like, let's take a shot, try to get a chunk play, catch them off guard, instead of just running like 4 yards for the first down. I'm like, well, like maybe then that's more of an opportunity to do that. But even then, that's that's in the middle of a game. Maybe if you have a lead, right? Go for it, keep the momentum. But not when you're up 2 with a minute 40 left, at like still in your own territory. Like,
yeah.
So
yeah,
I think that there needs to be a wave of just feel for the game, and not just totally looking at the percentages of what are the chances that I get this.
Yeah.
So,
no, I'm with you. I'm with you. And so, luckily, our coaches don't do that because my team sucks, so it doesn't really matter. He actually, well, no, I like Arthur Smith though. I think he could be one of those
new waves
those coaches.
Sticks.
Yeah, new waves that sticks. He has the aggression, but he has a good offensive mind. I like his creativity, and we have very little weapons, especially receiver wise. Kyle Pitts, Drake London. That's pretty much it. And so, looking forward to that. Bill Belichick, he's smartest guy, obviously. So that for me is going to wrap it up on week 5. We got a crazy Monday night game if you're watching it with us, and we'll have to see if the Chiefs are able to kind of pull this one out. Did they get that first down?
Yeah, they did.
15.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
They got there was a penalty, but then they ended up actually getting it anyways.
Oh, nice.
There's a legal hands to the face.
Let's move on now to our final topic for tonight, the Week 6 Thursday night football game. And Ryan, I'm excited. I think this game is going to be a lot better and a lot more entertaining than last week's Thursday night game. But it is the Washington Commanders versus the Chicago Bears. Two teams I'm confident are going to be picking in the top 10 come April. But actually, this could be the draft pick game. This could be the draft pick game. I like that.
Yeah.
Loser gets a better draft pick. So, Washington's 1-4, Chicago's 2-3. Justin Fields coming off statistically, I think his best passing game so far this season. He surpassed 200 yards against the Vikings defense, which isn't saying much. I think he's going to do it again, but I want to hear your thoughts first on who do you have winning this game.
I'm going to go with Washington. I think that they have the better team. I have no faith in the Bears.
Do you have faith in Washington?
I have more faith in Washington than I do the Bears. To me, like, Carson Wentz has shown spurts of competency throughout the season, whereas like Justin Fields really just had last week where he played okay. And I also think that Washington clearly has the better weapons in Diami Brown, Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson, I think, missed this past week.
I think he does have a bum hamstring.
Yeah.
But if he is healthy, I mean, that's a nice.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a nice addition.
And I just think that Washington is going to be a little bit more talented, and I'll stick with a consistent theme going forward with these Thursday night games. And 9 times out of 10, I feel like the more talented team pulls through because it's a short week. You don't have as much time to game plan. It's a lot more of, all right, we're just going to line up and play. And you try to target weaknesses and make in-game adjustments, but it's not nearly as easy as when you have a full week to prepare. So for me, I'm going to go with Washington. Neither team, I think, has a very good defense, but I still somewhat trust Washington's defense a little bit more than Chicago's.
So for me, I'm also going to go with Washington on this one, especially for right now. But the biggest thing for me is both Washington can somewhat run the ball as well as pass the ball. Chicago is very one-dimensional offensively. They can run the ball when David Montgomery's healthy, which I believe he did have a game. He did play last weekend. He did have a game last week, and so we'll have to see. But outside of that, Washington's pass defense isn't that good, but neither is the Bears' pass offense. So I do think that Washington's going to eke this one out. I think it's going to be a much more competitive game in a good way than it was last week.
Yeah.
Glad to not see the Broncos on prime time, not until Monday night at least. But I'm also going to go with Washington. I think one thing too I've always really enjoyed. I don't know why, but I thought about this too when I played like college basketball video games or growing up. But when both teams are off like by a game, like so Washington's 1-4 and the Bears are 2-3. If Washington wins this game, then they have the same record. I don't know why I really like that.
I'm the same way. I was looking at the Patriots and they were going to the Packers. I was like, it'd be so great if the Patriots could win and then both teams come out 2-2.
I don't know why I really enjoy that, but that just makes me really happy inside when that happens. So I'm going to go with Washington because really there's no other reason why I should pick the Bears. So for the reason I just said alone, because maybe I'll get some sort of joy watching Thursday Night Football. I'm going to go with Washington.
Yeah. I do. Did you just see the field goal miss by Kansas City?
No, I'm guessing right now it's third down.
So
I'm guessing they missed a field goal.
They missed a field goal, but they called a penalty on Oakland, a holding on the defending team on a field goal. And I think it was a horrible call. I have no idea what basis he made that call off of. We were just talking about it, but
Wait. So right now it's first and goal. Did I miss it?
Yeah, you might have missed it.
Okay.
They kicked a field. It was fourth down, so they kicked a field goal and they missed it. But then they called a holding by the Raiders.
Oh shoot! I'm going up against Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He can't score a touchdown. He can't score a titty.
But I think that was a terrible call. I have no idea what basis he made that call on it, because it looked like they just kind of stood up on the edge.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. I don't know. I have to go back and look at it. But then of course Travis Kelce, the touchdown, 20 now scored in the second half by Kansas City. Not surprising that they came back, figured some things out.
Yeah,
and those Raiders fans are upset. But what was I going to say? But yeah, that's who knows? Kansas City looks like they're coming to life now because they started off super slow. He's looking up against. It's holding up four fingers. Are they going for the win here?
Yeah, I guess so. I feel like that's kind of smart.
I mean, I guess you're already up a touchdown, but then you get up 2 points.
I mean, it would put you at up 9.
No, I know. So it's 2 score. I get why they're doing it, but now
now it's a 7-point game. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. We are not Andy Reid, nor will we ever be.
I somewhat agree with that, but it's also I don't know. It's a 1 touchdown game either way. They have to make the 2-point conversion, which as you just saw is not always guaranteed.
Yeah.
So but I don't think we have any viewers or anything at the moment. Oh no, we do have one.
Hello. Hi, Mom.
But no, I just I don't know how I feel about that call. So we'll see if it costs them in the long run. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about?
No, at this point in the season, I remember last year, because I was thinking about it. I'm trying not to keep my expectations on who I think is going to make the playoffs so roller coastery, so up and down. Last year we were talking about Colts suck, Carson Wentz awful. They had 5 games of the season. This is when they were 1-4.
Yeah.
And then they should have made the playoffs. They should have made the game to spare, but they got Raiders miracle play with Hunter Renfrow to go up a touchdown to beat the Colts at home. And then everyone knows what the Colts did against Jacksonville. Same thing also with the Bengals as well. Trying not to be too high on the Bengals because or too low on the Bengals because they started out, I think, 2-3, 3-2 last year. Then they went on a tear and were number 1 in the NFL, in the AFC. Rams struggled, once Matt Stafford got there for these through these first 5 games.
Yeah, and so, this way. This way looks a lot different.
I agree. And I say that because then I just think of Russell Wilson now is also like this, and he's in the same situation. But I think, though, like Matt Stafford, I think you could chalk up. Like, that team's still good, and they showed flashes of brilliance. They were just trying to get a whole 60 minutes together. But yeah, Russell Wilson looks, and I'm sure I'm beating a dead horse here, but he looks off. He definitely looks off. If I tore my lat, maybe I'd be off a little bit. I'm not saying that's the reason why he's bad, but even just his decision making just looks bad. Yeah. And some of it's stuff still, like some communication, I think still needs to be figured out with the receivers. Like Cortland Sutton, there was the play on Thursday night. He did an in-post route when Russell Wilson post route because that's what he thought the read was supposed to go for. So he just threw it to an open field. So some stuff like that. But even in the things like KJ Hamler, like, how do you not see, like, you should know what the play is, and then you see man coverage on the outside and that this is going to be a pick play. KJ Hamler should have been the first look. And no, he just looked at Cortland Sutton the entire time.
Oh, yeah. And then he threw the ball right at Stephon Gilmore, who 2 years ago was a defensive player of the year. Like, of all guys to avoid on the field that the Colts have, which, by the way, outside of Stephon Gilmore, they have very mediocre corners.
That's what I'm saying. It's like they were doing man cover. I'm pretty sure they were doing man coverage on the right side of the field, and the slot receiver is going to be setting a pick for KJ Hamler. All you need is a yard, let alone the fact if he doesn't get into the end zone, but you just need a yard.
Another thing, too, Melvin Gordon had over 100 yards. He was chugging all game. It's 4th and 1, you need a yard. It's not like you're running out of time. You still had 3 minutes left in overtime, or 3 or 4 minutes left, I think. Yeah. In overtime, I'm like, you can clearly run this ball. And so that for me is just bad. Right now, in AFC and NFC, who are your division winners? So
8 division winners.
Yeah. In the AFC and NFC, who are your division winners?
I'll do NFC. So South, Tampa Bay; East, Philly; North, I'm still going to go with Green Bay.
It's really close.
Between them and Minnesota. It's much closer than I would have thought. And then 49ers for the West. AFC South. I'm still going to stick with Indianapolis.
I'm not.
That's fine. That's totally fair. The North, I'm going to move to the Ravens. The East, Bills. West, Kansas City.
Okay.
So I think Indianapolis, they're 2-1 right now. They're only half game back from Tennessee, and they still haven't figured out the running game yet.
Well, Jonathan Taylor's been hurt too, so that
absolutely. So if they figure out that running game, I think that they have a legitimate threat with Alec Pierce on the other side. We know what Michael Pittman can do. And Patrick Surtain and Michael Pittman had a great matchup back and forth. But Alec Pierce was such a threat, especially in the second half of that game. They had to move Patrick Surtain over to cover Alec Pierce. Then they had to double team Michael Pittman. I think if they can get and similar to what I just talked about, you have a veteran quarterback, potential Hall of Fame quarterback in Matt Ryan. Actually, not potential. I think he is a Hall of Fame, not a first ballot, but he'll eventually be a Hall of Famer. And he needs to figure out this offense. And once this running game gets going, if Alec Pierce develops into that number 2, potential number 1, like 1B type guy, or just this season, if he can be the number 2 that they hope that he can develop into that, Michael Pittman's going to do Michael Pittman stuff. That team's going to be tough. I don't know how the Titans keep up with that, because the Titans are still very one-dimensional.
They don't. I was going to say they don't have the explosive weapons on the outside. I actually think Jacksonville's 3-2 right now.
2-3. No, they lost to Houston.
That's right, Houston.
And you know what? Who
they lose to other than Houston and Philadelphia?
Washington, week 1.
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, Jacksonville and Indianapolis are playing this week. That's going to be
that's a big one.
Well, and this time, 1, it's in Indy. 2, everyone, all the skilled players, the star players for the Colts should be playing that week. We're not playing in week 2. So I think that's going to be a big difference maker.
Yeah. I actually think Jacksonville has a legitimate shot to win this division.
I think so too. Yeah.
I really like Devin Lloyd and kind of what that defense has been doing. What was the first overall pick from Jacksonville from Georgia?
Trayvon Walker.
Trayvon Walker, that's what it was.
Yeah,
I kept on saying Traylon Burks, but it was
Traylon Burks with Tennessee.
Yeah.
I actually just got put on IR as well.
Oh, he did. Trayvon Walker looks really good, as well as Devin Lloyd. I like what that defense is doing. And I think Trevor Lawrence looks really good in Jacksonville. So
yeah. No way.
What a throw. Oh man. He was like running forward and everything.
Oh yeah. Well, I want to go watch this game as much as I think all of our viewers want to watch us watch the game.
So, all right. I think that's going to wrap up this episode of the Tracy Take. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. We go live every Monday and Tuesday around 9 or 9:30 Eastern time. And hit that bell notification so we can ping you when we do go live. And other than that, we will see you guys